And hello.
God damn it. Why don't you intro us?
Yeah, welcome to the We Should Talk More podcast. We're two lifelong friends, John and Josh, who have not much in common. Try and get a little bit closer. My name is Josh. I am in my UGG uniform today. I just got my 7-day free trial of Amazon Prime bathrobes. I got like a whole bunch of them. This is the most expensive one, so I'm just trying it out. And this is my co-host, John Alzate.
Hey guys, I'm John Alzate, local Wisconsinite and Midwesterner coming to visit Josh and be on his podcast. I'm really happy to be here. Josh, I just wanted to tell you, because I feel like it might be confusing. We're looking at that camera.
This one.
Yeah, because we have two cameras pointing at us. So
okay,
I realized
I wasn't looking at either. I was just looking at myself.
I also looked. I was gonna point it out, but then I looked and I saw that you were looking at yourself. So I was like, because it doesn't matter. But
when you put our picture up for us to view, it makes it hard not to.
Yeah, it is kind of hard. I feel like in the guest episodes we had, like I was just staring at that the whole time.
Oh, exactly.
Like, we had us and the guest there, but I try to remember to look at the camera.
It's like being on any video call or being on a FaceTime. I guess like a FaceTime is not really as noticeable, but when you're thinking about being on a video call for work or something, if you do show your face, I almost never look at the actual camera. I always look at the people's faces.
Yeah.
Or actually, I don't look at their faces. I look at my face.
Do you think it's uncomfortable if you're on a voice call or a video call and you see somebody looking right at the camera? And I guess it would look like they're looking directly at you.
I think it shows more character.
If they do that?
I think it comes across a little bit more confident when your face is directed at the actual camera. Because it's like you're speaking towards the person. It's like looking at somebody in their eyes.
Okay, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. And so
I'm just trying to give this soundboard some mileage right now.
Yeah, get the value out of how much you spent on that.
But guys, welcome back. Josh, let you know what the podcast is. Are you a returning guest or are you new? Let us know in the comments down below. We never ask. And if you're new, if you just stumbled on this podcast, strap on in.
Subscribe.
What are we talking about today?
This month is Christmas. And so we're talking about 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah, we're continuing a film review streak. This is our third in a row.
Yeah, we have a problem.
We do have a problem, but we've talked about some really cool films. If you've been able to listen to all of them, congratulations. If you haven't, definitely go back and look at them and listen to them and watch the movies too, but listen to us.
And friends of the show, tell me if you actually listen to these ones.
Yeah.
I'm interested, especially people who haven't actually watched the movie. Have you sat through a podcast of hours describing, talking through a whole plot of a film and what we think of it? Without ever having watched the movie itself?
That's a good question. Because we have some friends that have mentioned, like, friend of the show and guest on the show, Alex, mentions that he listens to us while he makes his salads. Mm-hmm. Hey, Alex.
Are you listening?
I'm in your kitchen.
Are you listening?
Text us if you hear us right now from your kitchen, Alex.
And also another popular area people listen is for the toilet squad.
If you're pooping, let us know.
Yeah.
Please. No, but I am curious, like, for people like that who just leave us on just to hear it, like, I guess, like, I wouldn't have a problem listening to a podcast if I didn't see the movie, if I'm not really paying attention to what's being said anyways. Because you just need that background noise.
But at that rate, I just wouldn't listen.
Yeah, I mean, but some people just want that background noise.
Yeah, I guess.
But they would have to like us a lot.
Exactly.
They would have to like us a lot and how we sound and just to hear us constantly.
Yeah, so again, this episode will be about 500 Days of Summer. It's a rom-com. We'll get into it. We'll go through our standard outline of talking about our favorite scenes, the themes, some, what's the third point? The characters, the filmmaking, and then our rating and conclusions.
But before we do that, typical to our podcast episodes, we have a brief coffee hour where we just catch up. So how are you doing, Josh?
I did not grab a coffee today.
I noticed.
I had the option of choosing to use my free Wawa Tuesday coffee around 4 p.m. today or for this podcast, and I opted for 4 p.m.
Did you need it? Do you feel like you needed it?
Oh, not at all.
Oh.
I also strongly considered, given that one time when I checked out of Wawa, dogs are barking.
Yeah.
I did not have internet connection, so I wasn't able to present my Wawa free rewards for the coffee. And I showed him on the app, oh, I don't have the internet connection. He's like, oh, no problem. I'll take it off for you because I know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
I was like, you know what? I want to practice my lion skills. I took a screenshot of my phone Wawa app showing that I don't have a internet connection just to do that, and strongly considered presenting that to the cashier. The screenshot itself, it looks pretty legit. It looks like I'm in the app. And just say, hey, sorry, I don't have any internet connection right now, but I was trying to unlock my free coffee today. But I felt guilty and I didn't do it.
Damn. That reminds me of this thing that I did on the NG Transit once. They have their app where they can scan your ticket, but when you pull up the ticket, it's like blinking. So like you can't show them like a screenshot because they'll tell like, if it's not blinking. And the blinking, it's like 3 colors. It changes every day.
So interesting.
So like I don't think most of the conductors going by like are remembering the colors, but they must know, I guess, for reference like what it's going to be for the fact that
if they're seeing a lot of other passengers, you're gonna know what the color is, perhaps.
Yeah. So if they see anything different, they'd probably like call it out. But what I thought about doing was like instead of taking a screenshot, I'll just like screen record it for like 10 seconds and then just like have that video up when they walk by. And I did it so I bought the ticket going and I did it like on the thing coming back and it worked.
Oh, for real?
I just felt kind of bad about it, but it did work. I'm still like, I don't know if the color, that's the thing that I was worried about. Cause like, I don't know if the color changes. Like, I don't think it would change like later in the day. That feels like too much work, but I guess like
it could,
because like what is like present in that thing is like the date. So like if you have it on the right date, I think the only thing that's different is maybe the current time. But like they would have to be really like diligent to know that part. So I don't think it's a perfect strategy, but
it is pretty neat.
It is.
I was thinking maybe I thought you were gonna say something like, oh, I took a video of recording it, and then like they invert the color whenever you record the screen or something like that. I don't know if that's possible from the application side, but that would have been really cool.
Yeah, that would be a cool. I mean, is that like a thing that they can do similar to how Netflix makes it so like if you take any screenshots or video recording, it just comes out black?
That's something that I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they have implemented that, but maybe they should. Maybe I should send NJ Transit a thorough email letting them know I found a flaw in their system.
For real. It might be. It might already be self-identified.
Yeah, probably. Maybe they don't care.
Yeah. Okay, but to our actual weeks.
Yeah.
What did you do this week?
We just came off of Thanksgiving. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner with my parents at a restaurant in Jersey City. Yeah, it was nice. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
Yeah, my uncle came up. We had food at my parents' house.
Nice.
We made turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes. They added gravy to the mashed potatoes.
Gravy?
To the mashed potatoes.
Oh, nice.
We had sweet potatoes too, with rum inside, and marshmallows.
Nice.
Very nice. And then we had green bean casserole.
Ooh.
Then we had Brussels sprouts.
Is this just your parents making all this food?
Yes.
Man, I like your parents' food.
Yeah, they put in a lot of work.
They do. They put in the love.
I wasn't done.
Keep going.
Did I say stuffing yet?
You said that at the start, but I guess you didn't include it in the list.
Stuffing.
Nice. What bread did they use for the stuffing?
Pawn.
Wrong.
How would you know? Yeah, I would have to ask.
That's good. Did you get thoroughly stuffed?
I did, and I still have leftovers in my fridge.
That's
and I
awesome.
shared with my roommate and a friend or two, and I had lunch myself with my leftovers that I generously took home that night. Still got leftovers.
Did you have Sam at your Thanksgiving?
I did not.
Oh,
Poor Sam.
Man, sorry about that, Sam.
I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving, and to the many things to have in this life. Thank you.
Yeah, we're thankful for you. Are you thanking Sam or are you thanking the viewers?
I'm thanking everything that I'm grateful for.
Oh,
which doesn't include Sam.
Okay. I'm just kidding. I'm
Sam.
very thankful for Sam and everyone else. I became rank 1,000 in chess. I'm very psyched about it.
I saw that.
But now I'm scared to play anymore.
Have you not played since that game?
I played a little bit. Usually what happens is like I'll have like dips. So, like I'll show you later. Because the chess app shows you your history and like how your score has moved. So like you'll see mine, like it'll go up and then it'll go really down, and then but like after those downs, it'll like go up past where I was, and then down again. So like
this is not an upward trend.
Yeah, and I'm like I'm afraid of like hitting the downs. I'm like I don't want to start like having like 10 games that I lose in a row and then like go back really low. But yeah, I'm the highest I've ever been. But now I'm like I think I should probably try to study chess more.
Okay.
At this point. So that I can like improve a little better, because I haven't done much studying of chess.
Yeah, I was really happy to see that you actually made it to 1,000. I know that was it one of your goals for this year?
That was one of my goals.
Last month of the year, you checked it off.
And I think we were talking about, or you told me to extend it to like 1,200.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like,
not at this point.
Yeah, I feel like if I tried to do that too, I might like the inverse would happen. I'll just like go a lot lower. So I want to be careful now.
Yeah, don't press your luck.
Yeah. So that's kind of why I stopped playing.
But for next year, maybe 1,400, 1,300.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like scary though.
It is. But that's exciting.
Once
you sent that screenshot, I was very happy for you.
I was pretty happy, and I was like telling other people. I think you were the only one that like, well, you and like Sam, but like I told my parents, they're like, oh, is 1,000 good? And I'm like, well,
personally, not really, but for John, respectively,
1,000's pretty good. Well, it's above average. Well, actually,
average is 1,200. From
where I was. Well, what score do you start? I think in
1,200.
In the app you start at 800.
Do you?
Yeah.
No, that was just you after you lost a few games.
No, well, I I didn't mention I'm 1,000, but in Blitz. So like I play 1 to 3 minute games. No.
Yeah, I noticed that.
1, 3, or 5 minute games, because
Gotcha.
5 minute is also counted in Blitz. Actually, 1 might be Bullet. So I think only 3 and 5 minute games, but whatever. I used to play 10 minute games, and I wasn't as good as that. So I guess for some reason I'm better when it's like instinctual, like.
Yes, using your intuition.
Yeah, because I think it prevents you from hesitating too much when you don't have like that much time like in front of you.
On the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a slow thinker, so I go for the 10 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We can get into the movie.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. I'll give a quick summary. Because I think we have a lot more to talk about in terms of the movie. 500 Days of Summer is a beautiful, would you consider a rom-com? I don't think it's a traditional rom-com, but it's I would say it's more of a modern romantic comedy, a modern spin on it, because it presents the similar tropes that you would see in romantic comedies, but kind of is trying to show you a realistic view of things. It stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Tom, Zooey Deschanel as I've already forgot her name.
Summer.
Wait, 500 Days of Summer.
Wow.
Tiffany popped up in my head from Silver Linings Playbook.
That's right.
The movie was directed by Mark Webb, who directed the Amazing Spider-Man movies. After
I did not know that.
And he's like known for having the romance between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone.
I would have liked him more if he directed the first 3 Spider-Mans.
Oh, like the the original ones? You would have liked him more if that was him?
Exactly.
Okay.
Especially Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. It's the best Spider-Man movie. But the film, basically, it's called 500 Days of Summer. It tracks the 500 days that Tom knew Summer. So it starts from literally the first day where he first sees her, and then it shows like how he actually interacts with her, then ends up dating her, then ends up breaking up with her, or she breaks up with him, and then them meeting again later on, and then all the way up until the very last day that he ever sees her. The movie isn't really presented in that way though. So we jump back and forth between those 500 days. So we're already given a lot of information on what happens. So like very early in the film, we learn that they do break up. We learn that the relationship doesn't work out. And we learn some other elements, and there's even teasers of much later in their lives where they're holding hands and Summer has a ring. So it's trying to make you think that they maybe get married. But we find out all the information of what actually happens, and you get more context to those reveals through jumping back and forth. And it's used a lot in the film to kind of show like Tom is feeling a certain way very early in their relationship, and then it'll show the exact opposite much later. And that's pretty much it. I don't think we'll get into like the actual like plot elements, but the film is mostly just about like the beginning and end of their relationship. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yes, I do.
Go for it.
Yeah, of course. It's very, very, very much just a film of seeing that there's love, as some people might think. But should you think that there's love?
Maybe not.
Don't forget the best protagonist in this film, because there's only one, is Rachel, the little girl.
Oh, the young sister?
The young sister.
Yeah, she is great. She's the most realistic person.
She honestly is. She's young. She's probably in like 6th grade, I think. And she knows more about love than Tom does.
So yeah, I mean, that is an important thing to note, that Tom is a very frustrating person to watch, maybe. Should we get into the actual characters? Because I know we're kind of doing a different order.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay.
Tom is a huge romantic.
A hopeless romantic, you might say.
Hopeless romantic. What did I say? He needs to be fulfilled. Needs love to fill. Oh, I meant to say he needs love to feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, to feel like he's complete, he thinks love is like the thing that he's missing.
Yeah, don't mind my notes. I was drinking a cerveza.
Oh, that's a thing too. The start of the film, it shows both Tom and Summer and describes how they were brought up differently. So both of them are children of divorce, which is interesting because they both come from families that their love didn't work out. But Tom, they show him watching The Graduate, which is a film that you had me watch.
One of my favorite films.
And they said that he had a gross misinterpretation of The Graduate and other romantic films, which is very funny. But then Summer, when they mention her, they mention that she only loved 2 things: her long black hair and her ability to cut it off without feeling anything. Mm-hmm. Which I think those 2 descriptions at the start of the movie describe these characters like perfectly. Like it's consistent with who they are throughout most of the film, where I think Summer, describing her as someone who could love something so much but so easily get rid of it, is like very telling of who she is. Like the concept of love isn't that important to her, where Tom that's all that he is after and pursuing throughout the movie.
He is presented as a nice guy.
He is.
People tend to sympathize with him throughout the film because he is just he really just sees like the like positive side of things. Mm-hmm. When he's going through his day, and he wanted to be with Summer, thought things could work with Summer, and then it didn't, and so you see the heartbreak too. So poor Tom, we just discover we kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah. To
your point, it just is really toxic and naive.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with Tom that you end up seeing is that he's ignorant to the reality of the world, his own reality and the reality of his relationship. Mm-hmm. So there's scenes like when they're broken up where Tom starts saying that he's okay being alone, and there's like a line that he says that like, oh, I wrote it down because it's really funny. He's like, loneliness is underrated. So throughout the film, he's presented as someone who only wants to be in a relationship, but he's in denial of who he is. And also he views his relationship with Summer only through his perspective. So like he is a little bit, I would say, selfish in that way, or at least closed-minded, where he only is concerned with how he felt the relationship was going, but never really, until later in the film, really like thought about how she was feeling about the relationship, or even what she wanted out of the relationship, which is like a big thing in the movie because it's very clear what Summer wants. Yeah,
Summer makes it clear from the start that she wasn't looking for anything serious. Despite that, just like most romance films you'll see, the man continues to pursue their object of attention. And so Tom doesn't stop. He continues to try to figure out ways to pursue her or get her and win the woman. And that's just him not really ever understanding who she is.
Yeah.
Like there's no more to it than just him wanting to be with her. And he keeps it to that narrow sight, to your point, where he doesn't care or ever actually empathize with what she wants.
Mm-hmm. And I think like a thing with him too is that it goes beyond who she is. Like he ends up viewing her, like romanticizing her to be this like perfect person, but he like ignores a lot of like red flags that you might like notice like early on with talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And he like puts her into a pedestal of like who he thinks she is. And even like throughout the film, there's an argument they have too, where he he like is upset at her because he thinks like her not wanting a relationship is bullshit. But it's all she's ever said. Like she's never
From the beginning.
Yeah. And not once in the film has she ever like said that she was changing her mind. If anything, she had maybe opened up to him a bit more, which I think in his mind meant that she wanted more, because she was like letting him into her home, like telling him things that she wouldn't tell anybody else. But those things don't necessarily mean
said, like, that must mean that I'm different.
Exactly. But those things, which I think is important for our young men who are watching, those things don't necessarily mean that somebody is in love with you. It's just a point of their relationship where they were getting very comfortable. Because I think more than anything, Summer was also just looking to be friends, because she viewed Tom as a friend at first. And she viewed him as like an interesting person. So like even after their relationship, she wanted to maintain that friendship because she felt like that connection with him, just not in the loving way.
I found another great characteristic of Tom being how he would reshape his beliefs just to want that relationship to work. Mm-hmm. He knew from the beginning he wanted something serious. But as soon as she brings up, oh yeah, I'm actually only looking for something casual here. I'm not seeing anything long term. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, I want the same thing.
And that's a great thing too, because there's like a scene where he's talking to his friends about like what they are, mm-hmm. and now he's like changing the script. And he's saying like, oh, like we have an adult relationship. Like I don't expect you guys to understand it. Like it's something different. But that's not what he wants.
He says boyfriend, girlfriends. So juvenile.
Yeah. Which is so clearly not actually what he believes.
Exactly. And you'll see that throughout the film. He will shape himself just to fit what he wants. Just like he's shaping, to your words, the image of I'm also forgetting her name, Summer, to be what he wants her to be.
Yeah. I think he's also an extremely insecure person. There's scenes where I think Summer had told him in the elevator that her day went good. Yes. And then he's like, oh, good. That means that she spent the weekend getting banged by some guy she met at the gym.
The way she said good.
Yeah. So it's like, and I think even just with how he views himself and like how others view him, he comes off as a very insecure person. And we are bashing Tom, but
he's sweet.
He is sweet. He is sweet.
He is sweet. He wants love. He wants to find happiness.
Yeah. I think he's just not grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and at the end, even Summer recognizes that Tom was right to an extent. She says at the end, I believe. Actually, do you remember the line?
Yeah, well, she said that like you were right about love, but you were wrong about me, saying that like she wasn't like this person that he was viewing her as. But I mean, I guess because Summer throughout the film too is like she doesn't understand what love is and she questions what love is, but Tom has this whole grandiose belief that it's hard to explain. It's like a feeling, like you know it when you know it, and Summer finally understands that later in the movie, but with someone else. And then she herself just was not the girl that Tom thought she was. Mm-hmm. Which is a good transition to talk about Summer, I think.
Yeah, we should talk about her. She is quirky. That's what I wrote.
She's
and different from other girls.
As many would describe a manic pixie dream girl, or like what men might view as a manic pixie dream girl, where she's not like other girls. She listens to alternative music. Yep. She is hanging out with guys and is very friendly. Is quirky, like you said.
Fits what you want as a guy. It feels a lot more relatable.
Yeah.
When you're a loser guy like us.
But I mean, you see like early in the film that the narrator mentioned. Oh, we also didn't mention that there is like a third party narrator that describes some stuff throughout the scenes.
He's the true protagonist.
He is. And he describes Summer as like no different than any other girl, besides like these little like special things that she had done throughout her life. Like, I don't know if you remember, there's like a thing how she like increased the profit of a ice cream parlor just by working there or something.
Yeah, I remember they were doing like black and white B-roll, weren't they?
Yeah, and they were just describing like who she was. Because like from an outsider's perspective, like Summer, she's pretty, but it's not like she is one of a kind that you could never find someone like that. Mm-hmm. But let's say like someone like Tom, just having this girl acknowledge like a band that he likes is enough for him to be like, she's the one. Like she's,
Yep.
which is like very early on in dating, is like, it's something that even I had mentioned. Like it's something that like even I would do, like thinking someone is the one just for like liking a few things that you like and having like a few similarities.
Yeah, I'm gonna mention later in this podcast that my first immediate thought, this is a reflection of John's life, love life at least.
Yeah, I used to think that. Well, I started to think that after watching it like later on in college, which is a funny thing about this movie, which I think we spoke about before, where like you can watch it, or I think people have watched it early on, and like you'll have a different interpretation watching it like later on in life. Because there are many people who have watched this film and leave it feeling really bad for Tom and hating Summer.
Mm-hmm.
Where I mean, you can't feel bad for Tom, but hating Summer, it's a little like
it's the way that it's presented,
Yeah.
and we can talk a little bit more about it. But the narration is all in the perspective of while it's not Tom speaking, the narrator is talking of the actions and feelings of Tom, not really of Summer.
Mhm.
And then they also end the film with Tom finding another woman, Autumn, which was again like love at first sight type of thing, and it's just another season.
Yeah, and the whole animation that they were showing before of numbering, it resets to 1, and it's like the autumn colors now. So yeah,
It's like a new cycle there that is just repeating what he's been doing.
yeah. But we should touch on Summer a little bit more. She, as we mentioned, is very clear on what she wants. She's very adamant on not wanting to be anybody's anything, which is a line that she mentions. One of my favorite scenes with her, which what we can mention right after this is the scene where they go to the karaoke like happy hour or whatever with their coworkers. This whole scene and her interaction with Tom and his friend, she describes everything about her beliefs, which is like consistent throughout her relationship with Tom. But she is a very independent person. I don't think she likes the concept of being someone's girlfriend because of that. Like she doesn't want to be someone's girlfriend. She wants to be Summer. And she's also, she mentions like she wants to save that stuff for later in life. So for her, she's more concerned with just having fun and being independent in her youth. Whereas like Tom is the exact opposite, like spending all his time feeling that he needs to be in a relationship to complete him, no matter how young he is. Do you have anything you want to add about Summer?
Yeah, she doesn't want to just fall in love with no meaning. She's definitely thoughtful and caring. And I guess the last thing I put here is something we already talked about was that closing line that ends up acknowledging that Tom was right about love. It just wasn't her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything else? Because like Summer.
Yeah, Summer. I don't have anything else to add for her.
I did add here Rachel,
The little girl.
the little girl,
Go for it.
little sister. I did put who plays her just to give some acknowledgement here. Chloe Grace Moretz. It's Tom's little sister. I really feel like is comedically placed here as someone to keep Tom grounded in reality, because the first scene that you see her, it's like this. The filmmaking of it is this build up to Tom just being depressed. It's like a awful scene. The music is sad. He's breaking plates, and there's this grand opening of somebody entering in. And it's a little girl. So the build up to introducing the character is wonderful. And all she does is like talk to him. Say like, hey, start from the beginning. Tell me the story of what happened. Why are you upset? And then you'll see her placed sporadically through the film where Tom is just going through a tough time and he goes to Rachel every single time to get some advice. And it's just comedic because she's just so young and you'd have no sense of why out of all characters she would really be the one to be able to provide any insight in dating.
Yeah, it is interesting because she also works as like almost the voice of the audience, because she just provides like a lot of the realistic advice that is grounding Tom, where he's just thinking so irrationally throughout the movie at points. So she's a really interesting character.
Shortly after, or right before, I think it was right after the breakup, he's there at a soccer game of hers, and she speaking to him about his heartbreak, and she tells him, I know you think she was the one, but I don't. Now I think you're just remembering the good stuff. Next time you look back, I really think you should look again. So this is pointing out the biggest lacking quality of Tom, or what's the word I'm looking for? It's not lacking quality. Flaw.
Mhm.
The biggest flaw of Tom is he's just looking at the positives here. After this scene plays, they play a reflection from Tom of his relationship with Summer, of what's already happened earlier into the film. They replay it and show now a different perspective of seeing few things from Summer that wasn't all that great. I think it was like the moments leading up to the breakup at the cafe that he's just noticing all the red flags or the signals that she wasn't really all that interested.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting because those are things that we had kind of seen before, but we're just giving like the additional context of those scenes. And I think they might have reshown some of the lines that like Summer had told Tom, but like throughout the film she says that she's not really looking for a relationship. She doesn't want to be anybody's anything, and she never says anything differently. So for Tom to realize that is just kind of interesting because he never actually listened to her, it seems, or at least he only heard what he wanted to hear.
Yeah,
and he would kind of be in denial throughout the movie.
I think that's the one and only part of the film that they may have shown a level of maturity of, or at least a little bit of like learning something from the experience. But then they do end with it kind of going right back to where he was.
Yeah, which I do really want to talk about. But are we going to do themes and then our favorite scenes?
You want to switch it up?
Yeah, we could talk about our favorite scenes.
Okay, if you want to do that first, I'm cool with that.
Let me see what you have so we can go
Ikea.
in order of when does Ikea happen?
When they first decide that it's going to be casual.
Okay. So I'll do mine because mine is the karaoke happy hour scene. Yep. And then so I really like this scene because I really like karaoke.
Of course.
But I also like this scene because I mentioned before, but Summer is very clear on what she wants. The thing that really struck out to me in this scene is when so leading up to this, we know that Tom is all about love. Like he wants to find the great love of his life. But while they're at the booth at this bar, Summer asks Tom straight up, what is that? Like, what is this love? Like, explain it to me. And Tom kind of seems like taken aback because he doesn't really give a clear answer. And he just says that it's just this feeling. It's just like, you know it when you know it. But to me, it also shows how little Tom really understands of love because of the fact that he can't really explain what it feels like. And it almost seems like he's looking for this concept that he may not himself fully understand. And it's a really interesting scene because it's deconstructing what Tom is all about. So he can so easily explain love off as being like a feeling where you know it when you know it, but he himself has not really felt that yet, at least from what we know.
It's funny because I don't think I would have any more depth to my response in that question either.
But like to ask that to someone who that's all that they're about, like it's just like interesting.
I guess
because
so,
like,
yeah.
Like he himself can't answer that. Like it's a hard thing, I think, for even loving couples. It's hard for them to like fully put the words to it. And there's also a line that I really liked later in the movie where after their breakup, Tom is all depressed and against love, and he says that love is just a word that companies like the letter writing company and like media companies, they put that word together just so they can easily simplify something that's too hard to explain, and make it so what is it that he's so people can't fully express themselves. He's like, people can't say how they actually feel. They just use these words made up by companies. Which is interesting because like saying I love you is a big thing, and it's interesting where it's hard to even describe it for even people who might even feel it. And for someone like Tom, very early in the film, to be questioned like this is just interesting because it's something that I think lasts throughout the movie. What else did I like about this scene? I mean, I thought it was pretty funny. They have the friends that get drunk.
It resulted in a very awkward scene towards the end.
What was that? Oh, where does she kiss him?
Not yet. No, it's the very next scene that they first kiss. But it was that scene where his friend, I forget his name, says that he likes her.
Oh, that's right.
And then they just kind of awkwardly. Well, she asks if that's true, and they kind of awkwardly stare at each other.
And then she asks if he likes her as friends, and he's like, yeah, as friends. Like he doesn't like tell her the truth. But then immediately after that, she kisses him at work.
But it was set up to definitely be a scene to kiss then and there. Yeah. It's just that it didn't happen.
No, it did not happen.
She kind of just walked away.
She did. But yeah, that was the karaoke scene.
Awesome. So I think after that work scene where they kissed may have been right towards the scene that I call out, which is the IKEA scene. I like this scene a lot for two reasons. The first reason, an IKEA date has always been, in my mind, although I've never done it, one of the best date ideas. It's like putting together a imaginary life with somebody that you meet for the first time as like a first date. This is like solely for best first date type of date, not second date, third date. You get to know a girl, don't take her to IKEA. That's a commitment. But first date, it's good to just do as a way of having fun. I think it breaks the ice very easily. So watching an actual IKEA date, this is my first time watching this film. I've thought about this IKEA date before. I think I may have seen it an inspiration through other media, and maybe they got this as inspiration from 500 Days of Summer. It's such a funny scene. They're jumping from like the kitchen talking about what are we eating for dinner? Bald eagle. To jumping onto the bed and then looking over. Oh, I'm so sad to tell you, but it looks like we got a Chinese family in our bathroom. Something to those lines. Yeah. They just look over. It's a Chinese family awkwardly staring at what they're doing in IKEA bed. They start making out in the IKEA bed, and that's where they talk about what they are. Summer says that she isn't looking for anything serious, and she wanted to make this clear to Tom at this point because maybe she was feeling during this date that they were on that she might think she could easily mislead Tom, so she wanted to set the ground rules. So that's where Tom responds, yeah, that's what I'm looking for too. Him just molding to fit what he wants to meet the expectations of this relationship to an extent. He just lies to kind of like put his foot into the door and hopefully slowly open it as the relationship progresses, thinking that he'll have her as the one and win her. Mm-hmm. So that's the second reason why I really liked it, because that's where they have that conversation.
The thing I really like from that scene is they also revisit IKEA later in their relationship, and I think I don't know if they do it when they initially show it, but it's like you see the contrast, because it's like on the day that they break up. Tom and Summer are walking through there, and that's like when Summer's kind of just like dragging along, not as excited to be with him as they once were. So like it's an interesting thing that they do where they like revisit that same place, but now much later in their relationship where things are kind of ending. But it is a great scene.
Gotcha. I only have one more scene, so to find out where it is in the timeline, you kind of already exposed it a bit, talked into it a bit, but it's the one where Tom quits his job. So if you have a scene that goes before that, go ahead.
I don't know if this one does. It's the expectations versus reality scene after they break up.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think
he's still working there at this point, because I think him quitting his job is like
towards the very end.
Because then that's when he starts studying, and then
exactly. Yeah. Okay. So go for it.
All right. So yeah, this is probably one of the most iconic scenes from this movie, at least from what I've seen on like social media. It's always like reposted on film accounts. The movie does this scene where Tom re-meets Summer after they break up at a wedding of one of their old coworkers, and while at the wedding she invites Tom to go to her house for a party that she's having. I don't know, is it her birthday party? I'm not sure, but she's just having like people over her house. And then the movie does a split screen, and you see the expectations versus reality, literally. And you see what Tom expects their meeting up to be versus what it actually is. This movie, this scene, I've watched like a 40-minute video essay on it. Like people, because you can go into this scene, and maybe I'll put that link, because like I'm not going to describe it all as well as like that guy did. But there's so much in just the framing of where people are, and like what is different in each like scene or each like frame, that like it just makes it so fascinating to look at all those little details, because just like where people are placed and the aspect ratio they use in the different scenes, like the type of lens, like how the expectations, the camera's very close and like personal, so like they're like zoomed in, but the reality scenes are filmed very far away, so it's like you feel like the emptiness, like the separation between Tom and Summer. So it's just like a master class of like of like filmmaking, like how camera angles and stuff can tell emotion, but also it tells so much just about Tom, where he has so much in his head that he's imagining what happened between him and Summer, even just re-meeting her at this wedding, completely misinterpreting like what she was doing by inviting him over her house. Because she told him that he's having friends over, but in his mind he goes to her house and like there's not anybody there, and he stays later, and then they have sex. But like in the reality, she does have friends over, and like he doesn't really interact with her that much at the party, and then he ends up finding out that she is engaged, and he sees her fiance there. But that whole scene, I think, is just it's so fascinating to watch, and it just really explains so much about who Tom is, and how even when he was with Summer, he would view things so differently than what they actually were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it highlights one of the biggest flaws in like the romantic point of view that Tom brings to the film. Just contrasting the reality and expectations. Mm-hmm. And this is relatable to many people when they're getting into relationships, is you set expectations of what you want from your partner, and reality comes to show you that those expectations generally aren't met. Yeah. And when they aren't met, you you can get very upset. You can get very pissed off because you don't feel like things worked out the way that you intended them to work out. But that's how life is. Life doesn't meet expectations all the time. And that's also okay. You can't control every situation. If you remember, John's biggest fear is not having control. So John's whole spiel is told through this film if you ever want to know about who John is.
Yeah, you should watch this movie to get to know me.
So I definitely see how this scene could be one of John's favorite. And honestly, anyone's. This is a very iconic scene of the film, I think. I'm also wondering if the whole like expectations versus, I don't know if they were doing it based off of the meme, like the expectations versus reality meme. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about, but did it have a frog in it?
Maybe. There's usually a frog in most. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm only shooting the shit.
You could take it away with your scene though.
So the next favorite scene that I mentioned here, John already kind of took a line out of it, but it's when Tom quits his job. So he had his very depressive state. They moved him to, I think, the sympathy department at the greeting. Oh, so if we didn't like make it clear, like we didn't. Tom worked at a greeting card company, which is just so iconic to who he is, where it's these very positive, lighthearted messages that you view of the world. So Tom breaks up with his girlfriend. His manager or boss notices that he isn't as happy, so they move him towards the sympathy department, I think it is. Or what was it that I said?
No, I think it was sympathy.
Sympathy? Yeah. Okay. Just because it is more relatable to how his emotions are now, and to help build him up from, I guess, his state of mind. So anyway, one day he comes into work, they're having a group meeting, and the manager asks him, "Hey, do you have anything from the sympathy department to add to the table today?" He's like, "No." Then they're going to move on to the next person, but he stops them. He says, "You know what? I do have something to say. This whole concept that I guess we are serving, or this whole service we provide, is complete bullshit. It's filled with lies. The cat, I guess, what was it with the cat? He said like it could fall over and die or something like that. I actually don't remember the message.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was like. Some lady was there presenting photos of her cat to be used in cards, but he said like something terrible could happen to it. I don't know.
Yeah, what we're really seeing is a cat falling to his death or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's taking the positive side of these messages to say, like, we're really feeding our consumers lies here. There's reality to life that we aren't really presenting to them. And by feeding into the lies of how positive things are, it's only building up to them getting hurt when reality comes to face them.
Yeah.
I did write a few quotes here. He says people buy cards because they can't say how they feel or they're afraid to. And I think that's what you were saying. The cards, movies, and the pop culture, the pop songs are to blame for all the lies and heartaches. So cards for where he works, but we also see pop culture songs to be a big part of the film. They, at more than, I think it was just one occasion or two, they were at a vinyl shop. And they also start their conversation over music for the first time. And then movies, they talk about The Graduate, and with The Graduate, they had different interpretations of the film. And then, like, I guess he feels like he's contributing to lies too, and so that's like what really threw him over the edge once he's really depressed and seeing that, well, life isn't as beautiful as I thought it was. I'm only feeding into it now by working here, so deuces, peace out. This is kind of fucked up, and he walks out. And I love it how his friend claps for him as he's walking out, and then no one responds.
Yeah.
I guess, like, while it was an outburst, it is one sign of like him actually coming to a realization of don't set your expectations so high as to what goes along with your scene. But again, I'll state it again. I think we can dive a little bit more into it. He retracts to repeating the same cycle as the film ends.
That scene is great. I think to your point, you finally also see Tom do something for himself in a way of like quitting and then finally like going back to study architecture and pursue that career, which like throughout the film we learn that that's like what he wants to do. He's just kind of like stuck in this greeting card company because things didn't work out and wasn't really trying to make them work out. So like he's finally making that effort.
Yeah, it's great to see that. And I think this also points out a great feature of Summer. While first glance at the film, people hate her. She actually like recognizes his passion and encourages him to go down and become interested more, like actually pursue architecture.
Yeah.
So this scene that immediately follows of him actually going through all the path of getting into a career in architecture is really through the encouragement of Summer as part of it.
Yeah. And I guess like getting into that, the scene, the last one I have is just the final scene when they meet. And this is like after Tom had started going to interviews for architecture jobs, and he is like listing out firms that he's applying to and is like starting to dress nice now. He re-meets Summer at this spot overlooking the city that he had brought her previously. And this is a scene that they showed us at the start of the film where Summer is like holding his hand and you see a wedding ring, and we now learn that it's because she's getting married to somebody else and she's just holding his hand out of kindness. So the audience ourselves have misinterpreted reality. You like that?
Sure.
I think I touched on it a little bit because Summer mentions the whole thing about how he was right, but just not right about her. So like now that she met somebody, she understands like what love is, and she understands that Tom was right about it. He just wasn't right about who she was. I really like this scene. I wish like to like you mentioned too, like I wish Tom actually learned from it, but he doesn't. But I like the fact that Summer, she doesn't discourage him from believing in love like he used to, but just her whole thing about how she wasn't the one, or she wasn't like who he thought she was. Like you would hope that Tom would maybe learn that like women aren't these things that you could like put on pedestals and idealize them to be someone that they're not. But I think the really important thing that comes out of the scene too is like sometimes you can feel a certain way towards somebody and they might not reciprocate, and they might not want something, but then they'll end up wanting that with someone else. And I think this is a thing that might happen a lot where like your heart may not open up to one person, but then you'll meet someone else who is just changes everything around. And like that's what happened to Summer. So that whole thing I think is one of the more realistic portrayals of relationships, maybe, because someone like Summer is like could be like someone like you, who like you don't want a relationship right now, but you might meet somebody who completely changes the way that you've been viewing things. And it's like, you don't know that until it happens. And like, that's what happened to Summer. Like she was not open to that. And I think maybe the fact that she wasn't open to that, or like she wasn't actively looking for that, is what made her find it. Whereas Tom, like all he was doing was spending his time trying to find the one, trying to like make every interaction he had. Because I personally watching this, I'm just assuming that any other girl that Tom knew before Summer, similar situation. or at least girls that he would like he would probably idealize them as well. I mean, we see that he does that with the girl Autumn at the end of the film. So like someone like Tom is just running into those problems because that's like what he's looking for, but he's not looking for it in a realistic way. And I just really like that final meeting between them, because it does kind of give that final closure. But as we mentioned, and we can like go into that too, because it happens like right after this, where Tom is at a job interview for architecture firm, and he meets like a pretty girl who is waiting there as well. They have like some banter, and he finds out that she knows that same park that he likes to hang out at. And then that one connection is the thing that lights up for him, that like, oh, like we have that similar interest. So he's like talking to her a little bit more. And then finding out that her name is Autumn is like the other big thing where it's like,
this is meant to be.
It's meant to be, like the fact that he just was dating a girl named Summer, and now Autumn's right here.
And he only has really 2 data points here to work off of.
Yeah. And the thing that is so frustrating is so Tom walks because it's his time to go get interviewed, and then the narrator says, I'm gonna butcher what he actually says, but he says something along the lines of like, oh, Tom has now learned through his experiences he doesn't believe in fate. Some things in life are just mere coincidences, and that's all they are and all they will ever be. Just a coincidence. As he's saying that, Tom turns around and then goes back to the girl, and it's just implied that this is like the beginning of
something.
500 days of autumn.
Yeah, 500 more days
Yeah.
before another heartbreak.
Yeah.
Which is to an extent set up intentionally from the directors, but also easily misconceived or what's the word? Conceived. Yeah. And that's why I guess like going into your scene about when they're at the park, it's the moment where a lot of people will say that Summer was kind of like a dick, because while throughout the film Tom was presented as this nice guy, he's honorable, he is very sensitive. Some people will take that as like he deserves love, but he ends up not getting love reciprocated to him. Under a different storyline for Summer, she runs into somebody, and just like what Tom would describe as love for him, like you just know when you feel it, Summer experiences that. So with no more depth than what Tom will describe as what love is, Summer plays out in her life. Yeah. And so it's like, well, why couldn't that have been me? I've worked so hard to make that happen for us. And being that this whole story was told through Tom's perspective, you would feel like very bad for him and feel like, well, that's kind of a dick move why you would fall in love with him and not for Tom when Tom worked so hard for you. Yeah. But at the end of the day, feelings might not feel that way for one person over another. Like things just can't always be controlled.
Yeah. And I think like, especially since Tom, from the get-go of their relationship, just was not understanding what she wanted and was trying to force it to become something that maybe she wasn't open to yet. Because Tom is Tom.
Of course.
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of themes, so why don't we jump into some?
Yeah. We can kind of blast through some of these. I think some of the ones that that we kind of like touched on is like the whole idea of like your soulmate or like the person that you're supposed to be with, which Tom is so fixated on, but it ends up being like for Summer, she ends up realizing that this is a thing. It's just not, it just wasn't Tom. Like she felt that for somebody else. The big takeaway that people should get from this film too, which is actually, this is a line from is her name Rachel?
Rachel.
Yeah. She says, just because some girl likes the same bizarro crap you do doesn't mean she's the one. Which I think is like so true. Like I think a lot of people could be like, oh, like we have this like one connection. She's not like other girls. She likes playing Minecraft.
Exactly.
But it's like that doesn't mean anything. Like that, like sure, it's an interesting thing if they like the same thing that you like, but it's not. It shouldn't be the only thing that makes it so like, oh, they're the only one I can ever be with. Which is a thing I think a lot of people fall into.
Yeah. Did you want to hand the mic to me?
Yeah, I was just tossing it over if you had any other themes.
Oh, yeah, I do. So my only real theme here that I added in, because I know John covered most of the basis, is the contrast between the romanticism and cynicism between the two characters here, Tom and Summer. And I mention it in a way of how I describe much of the film already, is Tom is the nice guy. he's presented as a sensitive guy and honorable, and he should be deserving of love, but ends up not getting it from somebody who is a huge cynic of what love could be. There's a line from Summer saying that there is no love, it's a fantasy. So you see throughout the whole build-up of the film, to be able to have Summer sympathize or understand what Tom thinks is just strongly contrasted with the character. Any other things I've really pointed out here? I guess we mentioned too that this film is narrated in a way that shows the usual like persistence you see in a rom-com, but at the end there is no winning of the girl like you would usually see in your typical rom-com, which in itself plays into a toxic culture of what we see today, where men will persistently pursue women hoping to win a girl over because it's very much inspired through films and it's shown usually as something that's positive. This film, I guess, aims to do the same. I mean, not the same, aims to do the opposite by showing like you can experience heartbreak, but then goes back to saying, oh, well, here's another situation. Love is in the air and Tom should go ahead and pursue it and everything's rosy and sunshines.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that like frustrates me with the film is the ending, because it doesn't, I guess we don't get enough information rather to know like if Tom has really changed. I think him like going back to the girl Autumn to ask her out isn't a bad thing, but I wish we would know more of like, is he really going to change, or is he just viewing this as another oh, this is like a fate meeting, like this is the one. And I was even just thinking like if they had ended the movie differently, where he receives all that information but then decides not to go to her and like just go to the interview, like that would be an interesting ending, but may not be the ending that like most viewers would want to see. Because I don't think like having the movie end with him just like having this interaction with the girl, like the people who are just viewing the movie as like wanting Tom to get that win, they would be just upset because they're like, oh, we want him to end up with a girl. So I don't know. It would be an interesting way to end it, I think. Or at least it would be the way to end it, maybe, where you would at least know that he's grown, to like avoid, or at least not put a lot of importance in these minuscule interactions and not view it as a fate meeting.
Yeah, I think one thing I wanted to draw back to, because you mentioned in the beginning, this is a rom-com. Other people might call it a coming of age film, but then does he really ever come of age? Because does he ever learn in the end?
Yeah.
We don't quite know, but it's presented in a way that he doesn't.
I think the only one that actually like learns and grows in this movie is Summer.
Yeah.
She technically like grew from her view that she had in the beginning to change. And I think that's another thing that I wish this movie did, was maybe just give more of her perspective. But I think viewing it so much from Tom's is important too, because we too, like the audience, is meant to like get tricked in the way that like Tom is viewing things in a certain way, so you can initially view things in a certain way until it's like flipped on you.
Yeah, you take in the same biases that he has.
But yeah, I mean, I wrote a lot of themes here. I do think a lot of the stuff we did touch on. We spoke about love and how it's a concept that cannot be described and it's hard to be described, and Tom himself, even though this is what he's all about, can't describe it. But it can only say it's just a feeling that you know when you know. I mean, you mentioned it too, but the whole like pop culture influence on love and like the concept of that as a word. I like that they brought that up, and also how Tom just like misinterprets like movies that he watches. So like he'll watch The Graduate as a kid, like viewing that as like a wonderful love story. Whereas like Summer watched that movie with him and she started crying. I was kind of interested to know, like, I don't fully remember. I know in The Graduate, he like snatches her away from a wedding. I was wondering why Summer was crying. I don't remember if it's like a sad ending for The Graduate.
Yeah, I was trying to recall myself. So
Yeah.
he runs with so many obstacles in front of him to be able to make it to a wedding. I think it was he was locked away or blocked from the mom to not see his wife. I mean, her daughter, who was getting married at the time. He jumps into his car. His car runs out of gas, so now he has to run over to a wedding. And then the best scene ever, just continues to shout her name in such a terrible tone, and gets her attention, and she calls out. I think maybe what it is she may have made that impulsive decision that wasn't that great for her, where she was actually going down to get married, and now that this crazy guy just came up to object the ceremony, she kind of went with it. Maybe that's the sad thing, I think, coming out of The Graduate.
I guess like viewing it from like Summer viewing it from like the female's perspective in that movie, she just viewed it as like that woman's life being ruined. And
very cynical point of view of the film, I think, would be that this wasn't really the best decision for her in the end. You're just kind of going with the person who is wanting you to fit his lifestyle, what he wants in life,
which I think is really fitting, because maybe you could even argue that both Summer and Tom are like misinterpreting the Graduate, but like just because Tom is such a hopeless romantic and Summer is such a cynic, so like she views the ending in such a cynical way, like you said, and Tom is like, oh, this is the best movie ever.
This is how it's supposed to be.
But
the guy gets his way, he wins his girl.
But yeah, I think we touched on a lot. The only thing that I'll close on for the themes is just like the expectations versus reality is outside of that one scene, it is like a big thing throughout the movie where you also see Tom's perception of reality to be kind of morphed. Like there's this whole scene after he first has sex with Summer where he like goes outside and he's imagining the city like high-fiving him. They break out into like a musical dance number, and it's just like very not realistic, obviously, but it's like this amplified version of reality that he's imagining. And I think throughout the movie you see his perception of how things are to be is not real. And then you also get the real side to it that is like letting you know that like this is how real relationships sometimes end up. So I think that's just a thing that you'll see throughout the movie. But
yeah, so let's get into the filmmaking. I didn't really add too much here because I know you also touched on many of the major filmmaking techniques, I guess, for cinematography that we see in this film. The only thing that we already talked about is how this film is not very linear. It jumps between points in time, and they'll present like what day we're looking at during the film to say, I think like one of the first scenes is like day 290 where it's the breakup scene. And we also get right in the beginning before the breakup scene, this isn't a love story. This isn't what you'd expect to be a love story. It tells you straight from the beginning that this is going to be kind of a heartbreak.
I think they say something like this is a story of boy meets girl, but it's not a love story or something like that. I don't remember. But yeah,
if you remember the captions right in the beginning too, it was, I think, words of the writer or the director on screen saying that
there's like a warning at the start saying that like none of the characters are meant to be based on real people,
and this hasn't happened to anyone or anything, but fuck you, Juliet, or something like that.
Which I googled it right after that. Did you look it up? Because I think it's a real person that like the director or like the writer was wronged by.
Yeah, I think it was the director. He had an interview and he mentioned how this whole film was very much inspired from a personal experience that he had. He wrote it based off of that. I'm guessing it was the writer. That would make more sense.
Because I don't remember. I don't know if this is based off of a book or something too, but yeah. I'll start on the narrator since you just mentioned that. The narrator has a bit of a personality, which I find like funny because he jokes around a bit. He's not an actual character present in the movie, and he's not meant to be Tom. So there are, like I mentioned at the end scene, where he says something that Tom is thinking, but then Tom does the exact opposite. So it's like I want to say it's what's the term for it? Like a narrator that's like misleading. It's like he's like an untrustworthy narrator. But I think it's also like it's hard to say because it's not like if it was Tom's voice saying that he felt away and did something different, then it would be like Tom is like lying to us. But it seems like also like the narrator doesn't fully understand like what these characters are going to do, which is kind of a funny thing. And that's like present throughout the film, which is really interesting. You mentioned the days, which is like an obvious one. And I think it's like something, I wonder how many people watch this movie and get confused, because I think like my mom was watching it along with me. Like she came in late, but she was just very confused watching the movie. I'm like, they're telling you the numbers like between the transitions, but I guess like some people might not be able to.
I'll say this film was for it jumping between the future and past, it's very coherent as a story.
I think so too. Yeah.
You think of a film like The Eternal Sunshine of A Million Hearts. What is it
Spotless
called?
Mind.
The Spotless Mind. I think that jumps between Past and Future too, doesn't it?
It does.
And that one's
yeah.
a lot more difficult to put the pieces together.
Yeah, because that movie, it's like jumping through memories and then memories overlap because this guy's like stuck in a time loop of his own memories. It's like, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was super creative doing that with the days, and I think it made the movie a lot more interesting. Like when you're looking back at relationships too, you viewing this movie as someone who's like looking back at a relationship, like that's how you kind of do it. Like you don't reflect on a thing from start to finish all the time. Like you'll just remember all these like different moments that existed all throughout it. It kind of reminds me of the Before trilogy, or like these are just like moments in life that all exist at the same time, almost like that thing that I'm forgetting his name, Jesse is talking about, which I like that. I think if the movie wasn't like that, I think it would kind of take away from the entertainment value, if anything. I mean, obviously it wouldn't be, I don't know if they would name it the same. I guess they could, but the whole idea of being based off of these days is really interesting. There's a lot of creative transitions in the movie. The whole editing style is very unique, just with like the different aspect ratios, cutting, and like there's like dream sequences where like Tom is like envisioning himself in a French movie. The random dance scenes, like there's a lot of like unconventional things that are done, which I think are like really creative and interesting. I like the whole like separation that they do sometimes, where they'll have like one half be like what Tom is doing, the other half be like what Summer's doing. I thought that was like really interesting and unique. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I think it's a very like stylized movie. It has a very specific like look to it, with like the different transitions with like the number, and then there'll be like a setting behind it. So like in the bad times after their breakup, it's all like bleak, but then like when he was dating her, it's all like light and summery. It's a movie that you want to like watch, like not to be on your phone or something. Like you want to catch all those cool little like transitions and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it is very cliched to meet what you'd expect from the film, but it's done very intentionally with the filmmaking.
Yeah, I think and it's funny too, because it's done in such a like it's not like a realistic thing, like with all these cuts and stuff like it, but the movie is also not falling into the same tropes, or many of the same tropes, as rom-coms, but it's kind of doing like a lot of like rom-com-y things with these like unique like artistic like cuts and stuff like that, and like the musical number and shit like that. And there's like a lot of just musical scenes where like they'll have a song playing over like nice stuff going on. I think there's like a song that they play like a couple times, like they like revisit like different music in different settings. So yeah, I like the movie. Yeah, it's great.
So let's jump into the end.
Yeah,
let's wind down.
We'll wind down. This movie was executive produced by Harvey Weinstein. So let's wind down.
Wind down? Is that a Harvey Weinstein?
No.
I know Harvey Weinstein and being controversial. How does wind down? What does that mean?
Was putting together like wine and wine, like Weinstein. Wind down.
Oh,
that's like a joke that'll get me canceled though.
Wow, I really didn't catch that. Oh wow. Okay, go on. Do you want to start? Or?
No, you can go.
Okay, I gave this a hot 8 out of 10. I started with some comments about how this immediately reminded me of John's love life. I kind of want to point that out after, but I'll jump into, I guess, what is really the cause of it being an 8 rather than like a 9 or a 10. Here is very much to what we already talked about. The movie is narrated by someone who casts Tom as the hero and Summer as the villain, despite the like toxic romantic expectations that ignore reality here. And it doesn't really ever come out with the takeaway that it was a toxic expectation. The film very easily makes the audience identify and sympathize with Tom, encouraging like the biases that Tom brings to the perspective of love.
It's clear that like what Tom is doing is wrong, but they don't actually like, I guess, give us that lesson that his viewpoint shouldn't be, I guess, like viewing soulmates and idealizing people shouldn't be something that people should do. Yeah. They don't give us that final lesson, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So there wasn't really any maturing moment for Tom as a character, like to the point of what we were talking about when we were saying this is could be interpreted as a coming of age film. The cycle just is kind of left off to repeat itself.
Yeah.
But to focus on one of my more interesting perspective of the film is the reflection of John's life, where John in love wants to be the nice guy. Tom is a nice guy. Will pine after girls romantically despite being friend zoned. Listen to our podcast, Aiden Podcast.
Yeah, listen to the high school and college one. You'll hear all about this.
Find out how John pines for women. And he's been friend zoned. Rosy point of view. So it's frustrated when reality doesn't meet expectation. We talked a lot on that point already. And how John learned from all of rom-coms John watched during his youth.
Mostly TV shows.
And
you can say romantic comedy TV shows. Though.
Yeah, and he kind of shaped his love life to meet those same expectations, or that's how your expectations were shaped, rather.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I rated the movie as a 9 out of 10. I think it's extremely rewatchable. I feel like it's a movie that you could easily like watch like in between each other and not be like, oh, I don't want to watch this again.
Mm-hmm.
And you could show it to people, like if you're showing your friends, like it's a movie people can just like get into. It doesn't feel like it's long or anything, and it's entertaining. I do, and I like that we mentioned a lot. Like I don't really like the way it ended off. I think that's my biggest critique as well, where the movie does such a great job with portraying so many real life pitfalls that people fall into. That's why to me this is like a modern classic, because I think in modern dating now, like this is a big thing. Obviously I've experienced it, and like there's a ton of other like media where you have characters just like this, where it's like the nice guy who pines after a woman who doesn't feel the same way, and it's like not a great thing. It shouldn't be a thing that people idolize to become that. Watching the movie, as me watching it younger in life, I was in the camp of like feeling bad for Tom and being mad at Summer. Watching it now, I feel bad for Summer and I don't like Tom. But it's like I only know that because of the growth that I had gone through. But like any other young impressionable person watching this movie might get a gross misinterpretation of this movie, just like Tom had a gross interpretation of The Graduate.
Yeah.
Which is like my biggest critique. I know movies obviously shouldn't give you everything. Like there's a whole concept of like show don't tell. So like you don't want them to like heavy-handedly feed you like this information, this lesson. But like we mentioned, there could have been things with like Tom deciding not to go after this like Autumn girl that he met, or like something they could have done a little bit more, or like even just shown Tom acknowledging that like he doesn't want to be that guy anymore. Because we don't really get that, which I think is like the biggest critique.
So I'm thinking about the way to twist this into a better movie. Goes back to our Before trilogy. I feel like they set the contrast between expectation and reality, and really show or narrated reality in a way that this film failed to do. Now this film is only one film rather than three.
Yeah.
But it does paint the contrast between expectation and reality. I think the Before trilogy really just focuses on reality with I mean that first film really showing the start of the infatuation phase, or that honeymoon phase that you would see in any romance, the first film out of the whole trilogy. But as you watch through each stage in the trilogy, you see the different stages in the relationship, which is showing you that love isn't always rose petals and dandelions, or whatever the saying is.
Rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah, very close.
No, but that's true. Yeah, I think the Before trilogy does a better job in showing a realistic portrayal of relationships, which
if you haven't watched, we did 3 episodes of the podcast on it. So after you're done with this, because we're just about to wrap up, Christmas is in the seasons. So
Christmas is around the corner.
So we will be wrapping ups. So go back and watch a couple of those episodes. Around then it was about Halloween time, maybe Halloween, maybe turkey season.
Okay.
We'll get back to your points.
Yeah, I mean, since you cut me off, I completely lost my train of thought. I wish this movie, I'll just close on that. I wish this movie did a better job at portraying that like realistic view. I don't have a problem with how it started because Tom is a flawed character. So for him to have this flawed view of his whole interaction with Summer, it's like a good lesson for people to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't end it like they didn't end strong enough for it to be a good thing, like that you would want people to watch this again. So maybe young and up and coming filmmakers make a better version of this movie.
Yeah, and
go for it.
And young adults who are having babies, don't show this one to your kids. You'll set up their false realities.
Yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, I was just gonna let it die in silence.
Let the minute go in silence. Yeah, we got a minute left. You guys want to sit down?
I think that could have been a perfect ending.
Oh, you're right. Well, I'll
just cut out
we'll
our audios, right?
Oh, we got some dropping.
Oops.
Guys, this was fun. You should watch this movie. You should watch our other episodes where we talk about romantic comedies. Check us out on Instagram for fun content. And happy holidays.
Yeah. Check us out on Instagram, but our website shouldtalkmore.com, and you can find our IG or Twitters, whatever you want to find, in all the streaming platforms. So subscribe, listen to us, look at the other film podcast if you've enjoyed this film podcast.
Yeah. Oh, the thing I forgot to mention that we should have done for the other episodes is to mention where we were able to watch these movies. So you can find this movie on Amazon Prime. That's how I watched it.
Yeah, except that it actually gets off of Amazon Prime after today, which by the time you're listening to this is
hey yo,
like 2 weeks ago.
So okay.
I
don't know where it's going. Where's it going?
It's not going anywhere as far as I know. I mean, you can check in 2 weeks time and let the audience know.
Okay.
But it's funny because I mean, I was, while doing my research a little bit today and popping up the film on Amazon Prime videos, it says like, oh yeah, this won't be streamable in the next couple hours.
Oh jeez. Damn. Okay. Well, yeah, I was thinking of doing that. We could put out a post letting people know where you can find a lot of these movies we've talked about. We forgot to mention next week is Christmas, guys.
It is.
So wrap up your gifts for us.
And we'll wrap up the podcast.
Yes. We have a very special 2 episodes coming out for this year. Our Christmas special and our New Year's special. So strap on in. We're gonna bang these out nice and quick.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if you want to watch the movie, check it out on 123 Movies.
Okay.
Or Put Locker.
Okay.